The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was already a mature take on Zelda. It was a coming-of-age story, where Link, the hero of time, was forced to come of age too quickly. In that game, Link journeyed to defeat Ganon in an adult's body, though still possessing the mind of a child, thrust into no doubt traumatic trials that'd make anyone lesser run and cower in fear. He was ultimately able to save Hyrule, but not without paying a few heavy emotional tolls, mainly his innocence and his childhood. In an effort to help her hero reclaim the latter, Princess Zelda sent Link back to his own time for good, but his experience irreversibly changed him forever. In the months that separate Link's departure from Hyrule to his arrival in the warped, parallel-like world of Termina, you could argue that we now see a grown man trapped in the body of a boy. In Majora's Mask, we wanted Link to look like a child with a touch of grown-up expressions. In Ocarina of Time, he went through some bittersweet experiences as an adult. After all, Majora's Mask does take place right afterward. Right from the development phase, it was decided that Majora's Mask was going to have a dark atmosphere, so we wanted his expression to match. So we set out to depict a character that seemed rather mature for a child. We put a lot of shadows on him. That's partially because of an overseas comic that I was a fan of at the time, Yusuke Nakano. This overseas comic, as revealed in a 2005 Nintendo Power interview with the man, was very likely Hellboy, as he was especially into that series when he worked on Majora's Mask. The intense use of shadows for all character art really makes the influence clear, and fits what Majora is setting out to do, considering the fact that both this game as a sequel and its world can be considered the dark shadow of Ocarina of Time and Hyrule respectively. Instead of having Link carry a simple wooden shield, or an oversized metal one like a turtle shell this time, Link was given new gear, better fitted for an accomplished knight. The hero's shield is reminiscent of the Hylian one, with a few notable differences, like the bird motif. Instead of a loft-wing-like creature with its wings fully spread, the avian was replaced with a more reserved owl. Using a nocturnal bird was, in the words of designer Yoshiki Haruhana, a deliberate choice, because the world of this game was on the dark side. My favorite piece of concept art is an early drawing of Clocktown from the imagination of Nakano, created to emphasize the many creepy masks that would appear in the game. There are masks with distorted faces hanging on trees, masks with long pointed noses and sharp, barred teeth, silly masks with a psychedelic flair juxtaposed with sinister ones, and what looks like a person hanging from a twisted branch. A lot of the architecture that made it into the final game is interesting and weird, but judging by this art piece, and all of these unused sketches by Takuya Imamura, it's clear that Termina could have been much more surreal and uncanny, especially this translucent flower with what looks like a human-esque fetus inside of it. There may not be any schnoz-shaped plants or floating vine-covered rings in the actual release, but the dreamlike world of Termina awaits nevertheless. And now, it's time to talk about that world's history. The Four Giants are the guardian deities of Termina, who once lived with the land's people in harmony. However, on one day during the annual Carnival of Time, which celebrates the passage of time and the year-to-come harvest, the Giants revealed that they were going to take on a more passive role as protectors, each of the four taking 100 steps in opposite compass directions from Clocktown. They were to enter a perennial slumber, awaking only to assist when called to answer a crisis. The Skull Kid was heartbroken by this news, as he was a friend of the Giants since before they had created the Four Worlds. Feeling betrayed, the childhood companion acted out of spite. He spread his anger across all four worlds, repeatedly wronging all people until they sang a song of prayer, the Oath to Order, for their gods to help. The Skull Kid's intention was likely to draw out the Giants so that he could see them again. But this backfired, as instead of addressing the people's plea in person, they simply answered with a roar, declaring loudly that the Skull Kid was to be banished from their land. Frightened and filled with even more sorrow, the dejected imp returned to the heavens and harmony was restored to the Four Worlds. Okay, well, Granny's story took some creative liberties at the end there. What actually happened is that likely sometime after the Skull Kid's banishment, he met the fairy siblings Tattle and Tail, while taking shelter from the cold rain outside the walls of Clocktown. Bonding through this shared, painful experience, the fairies stuck with their newfound friend, only to regret it later, when the Skull Kid's mean pranks turned into crimes. And once he wielded the power of the eponymous Majora's Mask, those crimes quickly turned into evil. This accursed artifact granted the childish demon abilities surpassing that of his old friends, the giants, who shunned him. And so he imprisoned each of their spirits within other dark masks worn by monsters who have claimed each region's sacred temple. Now, with no gods watching over the land of Termina, the Skull Kid's heightened malice has taken over completely, as he uniquely curses all corners of the map, sending most every one of the world's inhabitants into a downward spiral of hopeless depression, before ultimately eradicating them all under the weight of a falling moon. Why would the Skull Kid pull the moon out of orbit to send it on a slow-burning crash course that'll eventually kill everyone, including himself? That's because the Skull Kid isn't tapping into the mask's power to do his own warped bidding. The mask is now, and presumably always was, in total control, using its host like a puppet to fuel an insatiable desire to elicit insurmountable suffering. The mask revels in the all-encompassing, overwhelming paranoia of an inescapable doomsday hanging over an already dying world. While the exact origin of the mask isn't exactly clear, we are given details as to what it was initially used for: sinister hexing rituals performed by an ancient tribe. It is said that a tremendous, wicked power is bestowed upon the one who wears the mask, which is implied to have happened at least once before, because, according to the mask's most recent owner, the Happy Mask Salesman, the troubles caused by Majora's Mask were so great. The Ancient Ones, fearing such catastrophe, sealed the mask in shadow forever, preventing its misuse. That tribe from the legend has since vanished, but it's very possible that the Happy Mask Salesman himself is a descendant, due to his unmistakable resemblance to the mask-trading Moon Children, which helps explain how he got his hands on this forbidden item. The Happy Mask Salesman's true intentions are never explicit either. After apparently going to unspecified great lengths to acquire the infamous mask, he could sense the doom of a dark omen brewing, that unwelcome feeling that makes your hair stand on end, and yet he was in all probability the one who brought it back into this world from eternal darkness for his personal collection. I don't doubt that the mask itself, sensing the Skull Kid's perpetual distress, is what lured the imp in to steal and ultimately put it on. But could this have been what the mask salesman wanted deep down? To indirectly release an uncontrollable evil into the world, to see the mask's true potential realized with his own eyes? I personally don't think he's a purely villainous mastermind or anything like that, but I do believe he's some otherworldly being who was swayed by the dark desires of his heart, lamenting the consequences only after it was too late, which is one of the reasons why he so desperately begs the time-traveling Link to get it back for him. The Happy Mask Salesman isn't exactly thrilled that the evil has left the mask at the end of the game after all. He's the perfect example of a morally ambiguous character done right, showing both good intentions, as well as a more devious side, like the aforementioned mystery of how he initially came into possession of said mask, along with the tendency for sudden, violent physical outbursts. So how exactly does this inexplicable fellow help Link? Well, it's best to start from the very beginning. Wandering through an unfamiliar, fog-dense forest leads Link to an ambush, where he's robbed of the precious Ocarina of Time, and his beloved horse Epona. This is the face of someone who's been through hell and back, and does not want to have to deal with some backwoods punk tooting around with a priceless memento from Zelda. After an unsuccessful rough and tumble chase, Link shows off an acrobatic expertise apparently honed by his adventures in Hyrule, before literally and figuratively tripping into the world of Termina. The Skull Kid casually reveals he got rid of Link's stupid horse, and then, using some kind of black magic channeled through the mask, transforms Link into a lowly Deku scrub. According to an Iwata Asks interview, this sequence was apparently finished the morning following a nightmare Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma had, in which a Deku chased him. He woke up screaming, and was understandably shocked to see that when he made it to work that same day, Takumi Kawagoe had prepared a cutscene that coincidentally mirrored Aonuma's dream. Satoru Iwata jokingly suggested the possibility that Aonuma may have been possessed during the game's development, an idea that interestingly comes up a couple of times in this discussion. First, Link has to go back to being a child after getting accustomed to an adult's body, but now he's cursed to take on a kid form that isn't even human. On the way to Clocktown is a gnarled tree, distorted from what looks like a Deku scrub. Tattle comments that the way Link appears right now sort of looks like this tree. It seems dark and gloomy, almost like it could start crying any second now, which is a sad detail that's important to remember later, as we eventually learn that Link's transformation masks contain the spirits of the deceased. The Goron mask appears after healing the ghost of Darmani III, a proud Goron warrior who died investigating an unnatural blizzard blowing from Snowhead. The Zora mask materializes after healing a dying Zora hero's soul, Mikau, a legendary guitarist who was fatally wounded after a run-in with merciless pirates. The Deku mask is shed from Link's curse after he himself is healed by the Song of Healing, learned from the Happy Mask salesman. This to me hints at the idea that the Skull Kid's curse did not just turn Link into a newly created Deku scrub from nothing. It instead stole the life essence of the closest Deku scrub around and forced it into Link. We know this particular tree doesn't just look like a Deku scrub, it was one, as it's heavily insinuated that this is what's become of the Deku Butler's missing son. Goron and Zora Link are nearly indistinguishable from Darmani and Mikau respectively. Most everyone thinks these characters are alive and well, so long as Link wears their skin. There are rare exceptions though, one of them being Todo, the manager of Mikau's band, the Indogogos. If Link dons the Zora mask and speaks with him, Todo is at first startled to find Mikau standing before him, but then dismisses the notion, while remarking on just how much they look alike. Similarly, the Deku Butler is very much reminded of his own son when he sees Deku Link, but understands that they are not the same person. During the end credits, he is seen kneeling and shaking before this lonely tree, possibly having just discovered it, crying and mourning the death of his son. This is made obvious enough with in-game context clues, but if you're still not convinced that this tree is the contorted, petrified corpse of the Deku Butler's son, then this official Nintendo Miiverse interview with the Happy Mask salesman directly suggests it. I haven't even scratched the moon's surface as far as mature themes in Majora's Mask, but I will be ending part 1 of this Dark Aspects analysis here. I have several more episodes in this series planned, covering everything from how the townsfolk cope with the incoming apocalypse, to the horrific implications some other masks in this game have to offer. Let me know what you enjoyed about this video in the comments, and which topics from the game you're looking forward to me exploring. To support Dark Aspects, you can subscribe to the channel, and check out my Patreon page for exclusive updates and behind-the-scenes content. Thank you all for watching, I'll see you next time.